Hello, my name is Amy Foster, and I am the Head of Collection, Access, and Technical Services, or CATS, at the Montana State University Library. CATS includes 3 units: Collection Development, Acquisitions, and Electronic Resources, Metadata and Physical Processing, and Interlibrary Loan. I have been at the MSU Library for 25 years. Traditionally, Special Collections was pretty siloed. Their personnel handled the organization and physical processing for archival materials. Catalogers provided copy or original cataloging for some materials going to Special Collections, but there were few documented processes and procedures. Depending on where materials were to be located, a distinct named collection location, or the general Special Collections, there were differing expectations for how materials were cataloged and processed. Items would often appear on a cataloger's desk or on a book cart with a note, "Add to X collection," but no other information. There were often duplicated materials, ephemera, and some rare one-of-a-kind materials that would require additional information from the librarian before the cataloger could proceed. We tried to streamline the process by creating a form that the librarian could fill out with the required information, and we set aside a shelf where problematic items could be set aside for the librarian to have a conversation with the cataloger about, but these were met with inconsistent results. A change in library administration in 2013 introduced a new challenge. The new library dean was keenly interested in increasing digital collections for the library, something we had minimal experience with at that point. A very large project that involved accessioning 183 boxes of physical materials, the digitization and description of 6,600 plus objects, and the creation of a searchable database, all with an extremely aggressive, some might say impossible, one-year deadline, presented many challenges across the organization. Some of those were the discovery that materials were scanned in black and white, but needed to be in color, figuring out how the outsourcing of some of the digitization would be handled, differing expectations regarding the quality of metadata that could be produced by the vendor versus done in-house, and the reality that most regular work needed to be placed on hold to allow for the project to be completed on time. Without established procedures and protocols, there were many lessons learned the hard way. In June of 2020, Jody Allison Bunnell was hired as the new department head of the renamed Archives and Special Collections Department. In her first year, she identified concerns such as every project was created as a one-off from scratch, there were no established procedures for handling even the most straightforward projects, and there were different expectations and understandings about the labor and time needed to complete projects, as well as breakdowns in communications between departments. All of these contributed to inefficiency and significant frustration. She also learned a great deal about the difficulties the large project I just mentioned presented to employees across the organization. She was determined to make changes that would improve outcomes and cause less upheaval and stress for the employees involved. A project led by Jody and 2 external facilitators was undertaken to improve the processes and interactions between 3 departments: Archives and Special Collections, CATS, and Digital Library Initiatives. A group of 17 library employees from across these 3 departments participated. The first step was for the group to decide and agree upon who the customers and/or stakeholders were and define their needs. The facilitators assisted the group in outlining an overview of all the processes required for preparing unique collections. Then in smaller groups, participants described each individual step of the process in detail. Because it was so easy to get lost in the weeds of exceptions that could occur in a project, the group was directed to focus on the 80% of projects that were standard rather than the 20% that had outliers or exceptions. Through these discussions, the current state was mapped out on a flowchart. Pain points were identified, and the most crucial of those were worked on. A group tasked with coordinating the next step was created. The 4 members were Jody as the project lead and head of special collections, myself as the head of CATS, and the head of digital library initiatives, as well as the digital operations manager. This coordination group oversaw the small group meetings. It was determined that there also needed to be a group that would discuss the technical aspects of projects, such as metadata specifications, application development, digitization of materials, and file storage needs in the earliest stages of some projects. The Technical Review Committee, or TRC, was created. This committee is made up of application developers, metadata specialists, a system administrator, and it is chaired by the Digital Operations Manager. The TRC meets on an ad hoc basis for projects that include a digital component. The TRC will make recommendations about whether to digitize materials in-house or if outsourcing is necessary. They will discuss the metadata needs as well as storage capacity needs for the finished collection. That coordination group became the cross-functional group, or CFG, at the end of the redesign project. The CFG is tasked with reviewing all project plans, making sure all pertinent details are noted, including promises made to stakeholders, outlining the deliverables, acknowledging the assumptions and constraints, and the date or deadline the project should be finished. The plan includes an overview of the collection, including the title, the coverage dates, the creator's name, restrictions on access, and an overview of the extent and contents of the collection. The CFG meets weekly to discuss new project plans, to gauge capacity within the 3 departments, and they use a project tracker extensively to stay apprised of progress on each project. If a project is stalled, CFG will discuss what needs to be done to get back on track or if priorities need to be shifted. Our project tracker was created using an Excel spreadsheet, and there's a separate tab for each project. The title of the project and a link to the project folder and TRC report are available on each tab. Every row represents a single action within the process, and there are columns for who is responsible, the start and completed dates, status, and notes. Often we use the notes to document when a process is in a waiting status. Every project is divided into 5 phases: intake, planning and curation, description and preparation, access, and closeout. This slide shows the description and preparation phase of a project that we have completed. All processes, regardless of type of project, were represented, even if a project didn't need it. That meant individuals had to wade through extra lines that were marked NA in the status column, creating visual clutter. The new processes worked reasonably well, but there's always room for improvement. A retreat was held for most of the original group in the fall of 2023. We identified several things that would improve processing of unique collections going forward. Setting and articulating specific goals and priorities was determined to be crucial so that everyone was on the same page. Setting goals for the entire year was seen as overwhelming, so the group decided that semesterly goals was a more reasonable approach. We set out to simplify our processes and update our documentation as well. While we had a SharePoint page devoted to unique collection preparation prior to the 2023 retreat, it was not easy to navigate. This page shows our current SharePoint page. The quick links to the project tracker and the CFG running notes have made finding these documents much more easy. The section for documentation makes it simple to find the current processes, and we have retired documentation archived under the Documents tab on the left. The priorities and timeline are prominently shown, and the must finish, should finish, and could finish categories help us to know what is the most important things to be working on. CFG checks the progress of each of the priorities on a monthly basis, and we can make adjustments as necessary. As part of our refinement process, small groups revisited the processes they previously outlined to see if simplifications could be made. One such improvement is that there is now a template for each type of project: archival, bibliographic, digital, and the various combinations within the tracker. The template includes only those processes required for that type of project. As you can see on this slide, the visual clutter has been removed, and this makes the tracker a much more useful tool. A feature that CFG would like to see in the future would be automatic notifications rather than having to send emails as tasks are marked done. Options for new software are currently being investigated. There have been a number of noteworthy improvements to how unique collections are processed at Montana State University Library. The original Process Improvement Project brought together key members from different departments and allowed frank discussions of workload and expectations to be had. The process of identifying and solving for pain points was extremely helpful. It increased knowledge and understanding of others' work and their workloads. The creation of a plan for every project makes clear expectations from the start. Having well-documented, efficient processes makes training new employees easier and more straightforward. Our project tracker allows everyone involved in projects to see where things are at, and even the library dean can easily follow progress. The time and effort invested in the initial process improvement project and the subsequent refinement process have resulted in 44 projects being completed since January of 2022. And we've allowed more productive collaboration between the three departments involved in processing unique collections. Thank you. Please feel free to contact me at this email if you have any questions.